What we're going to cover in this slideshow are the following topics. What issues are dealt with in a typical divorce? What's the process? What phases are there for the divorce? How much is it going to cost? How can I, as a client, help reduce the costs? And what are the next steps? So let's start with what are the issues. There's basically 6 main issues. Parenting plan and child support obviously only apply if you have kids, minor kids or dependent kids that could be adult but still dependent. Spousal maintenance or alimony is a third issue, which isn't in every divorce. It's only usually where there's one spouse that's very wealthy and one spouse that's poor in terms of income ability. Property and debt, usually handled in all divorces except for the ones that have where people have virtually nothing. Restraining orders can be more than just no contact orders. They can be very profound, like domestic violence protection orders, but they can also be financial restraining orders, and they aren't necessary in all cases, just in some. And again, attorney's fees and costs, the final issue, is usually something that's addressed but just peripherally. So the process for getting divorced, there's several things you'd go through. One is, the first thing is get organized. You have to file and serve initial pleadings. You need to deal with any urgent matters, which would be ex parte restraining orders is the typical way of dealing with that. Ex parte meaning one party. Think urgent or emergent matters, like freezing either party's ability to spend a lot of money or to change insurance. That's a typical restraining order. Then temporary orders is usually the only time that parties will appear in front of a judicial officer, and that's going to be covered in the phases of divorce. Discovery and negotiation, settlement or trial, those are the other parts. The phases of the divorce, typically phase 1 is from the filing to the temporary order hearing, usually anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, so generally about a month. And once you've gotten through that, temporary orders is where the court lays out a temporary parenting plan, temporary child support, temporary spousal maintenance, if any, temporary use of property, temporary obligation to pay installments on debts that are owed but not the entire debt. Basically sort of setting things up so that there's a plan for the course of the litigation. In King County, your trial date is going to be set about 11 to 12 months after your date of filing, so this uses that 11-month span. The trial date can be continued, and so things can last longer. The second phase is usually begun in earnest after the temporary order hearing, and that involves 2 things. Discovery, which is the legal process of acquiring information that you don't already have, and then negotiation. And negotiation to reach a settlement is usually engaged in earnest once you have enough information that you feel like you're ready to proceed with making an offer or accepting an offer, and doing so knowingly. That is often convened, or negotiation ends up with settlement either after a guardian ad litem or a parenting evaluation has given a recommendation regarding parenting plan if that's an issue, or after mediation, which is required in King County under LFLR 16, a local court rule. The third phase is, and there's really only 2 ways you get out of the divorce process. One is by settlement, an agreement between the parties, or by trial, which is in front of a judge, and the judge makes the decisions on those things that you can't or haven't agreed to yet. Trial is expensive, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even over $100,000. And settlement is the way that 95% of divorce cases filed in King County are resolved. There's only a few or a minor number that actually go to trial. So how much will it cost? Well, it depends on a number of factors. Whether it's agreed or disputed is probably the biggest factor. Whether there are kids involved, that's a big factor. Whether there's real estate or businesses or complicated legal issues. Whether you need to use a guardian ad litem or a parenting evaluator or other experts, real estate appraiser, etc. Those all contribute to the costs if you need them. And obviously whether you can settle and how early you can settle, or whether you actually go to trial and have a judge decide things. Usual range on here, it says 1,000 to 10,000. That's a little bit old, and I would say it's probably more like somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 is going to be your range, but most cases are going to be agreed, and they're going to be somewhere between 5 and 25,000. So how can you help to reduce the costs? Well, the first thing is we're going to get you intake forms, and you need to complete those and get them back to us as fast as you can. Get us copies of all the documents that are listed in our intake form so that we can put your paperwork together as quickly as possible. We also will ask you for additional information and provide that as needed. The next steps, you need to inform us if there are any urgent matters or emergent matters. Are the things that you don't want to have happen, or are the things that you really need to have happen soon? So financial need or restraining orders regarding domestic violence or property and spending, freezing things, that would be the kind of thing that would be worth talking about. Assuming urgent matters are taken care of, you can complete the intake form and provide us the other documents that we need, and then we'll draft the initial pleadings, and you need to review them and return them promptly. Thanks for watching Divorce 101.